Hi there, it's me again, Georgina. In today's Back to Basics series, I'll be taking you through what every home sewer should have in their toolbox. I'll be taking you through what I have in mine, which makes my life super easy for any home sewing creations. I'll also be showing you just a few simple tricks that I have for some of my items in my toolbox. But before I go any further, subscribe to our YouTube channel for any future videos like this one and plenty more. Also, if you're on Instagram, follow us at teachmefashion_official for any future inspirations and behind the scenes footage. Stick around for the video if you want to see. First from the toolbox is a measuring tape. It is so important to have one of these. Obviously you use them for measuring your body, measuring a side seam, absolutely everything. But I prefer working with a measuring tape that has both centimetres and inches on it. This is because obviously with international patterns, here in Australia we prefer working with centimetres. So if I'm purchasing a pattern from America, either online through a magazine, I prefer to have both so I'm not getting confused and it makes your life super easy. A super handy trick that I like to do with my measuring tapes, obviously I have multiple lying around the house, but I do like to have one stuck on the end of my table so it can't be removed and it's there for easy access. You should try this if you have a permanent workstation. Next, I'll be talking about pins. So pins are obviously really important and you need to make sure that they are super sharp when you're obviously putting them into your fabric. A good trick with pins before you use them is put them into a scrap piece of fabric before you obviously put them into your garment. So the pins that I use, I have dressmaker pins, which are small little pins with no head on them like this one. So they're super fine and easy to put your machine over if you've got a thick piece of fabric. Another option that I use is a pin that has a pearl head or something that is easy to grab from if you're working with obviously a lot of fabric that you can just pull out as you're sewing through. A handy trick with pins, if you find them lying on your floor and it's super hard to get up, get yourself a magnet. This will pick them all up quite easily instead of you fiddling through carpet on your floor to pick them all up. Another idea would be getting yourself a pin cushion. These come in all shapes and sizes, and even you can get ones that are on your wrist for easy access so that you can just put them on there and once you finish, remove them, put them back in their case. Next off is sewing needles. So obviously there's hundreds that you could choose, but what I prefer to have in my toolbox all the time is household needles. So these come in a different range of sizes, and obviously that means they're either thicker or thinner and have different eye of the needles. So these are super handy to have spare, so you can use them for different sewing creations like sewing on a button or putting in sequins into something fabulous. Next up is thread. So thread obviously comes in an array of colours depending on what fabric you're using. It can be used to put buttons on, mend holes, or even for your sewing machine, so not necessarily hand sewing. I love to have a red piece of thread in my toolbox just so that if I'm tacking any fabric together, red is quite easy to stand out on dark fabrics and light fabrics, and obviously when I'm unpicking them it is quite easy to see as well. On the topic of unpicking thread, you most definitely need to have in your toolbox a quick unpick. So these are quite small. I'm sure you can buy them online, but I just bought this here in Australia at my Spotlight. They come in all different colours, but these are super handy if you've made any mistake with either your hand sewing or your machine sewing, which it just cuts through the thread quite easily. And obviously if you're doing any hand tacking, this is your guy to turn to unpull it, and it just cuts through the thread quite easily. Next up, scissors. So obviously there's different types of scissors that you can purchase and for different uses. Make sure that you have a pair of fabric scissors that you only use for fabric, and obviously paper scissors for paper. If you use these on paper, they get blunt very easily, but if you do, I've got a super handy trick that you can to obviously sharpen them at home. Get yourself some foil just from the supermarket, lay it out straight and just snip through the ends as much as you need to resharpen them. So on the topic of scissors, these little beauties are what we a thread cutter. So these little thread cutters are really good and agile and small, so you can just pop them in your hand like this to cut, and they're super handy to cut threads from a finished garment or from a machine at the back if it's too small to get normal scissors through. They're just super easy to have lying around. I have multiple in my toolbox because I always lose one. But yeah, you need to get one of these or two of these into your toolbox to make your life easy. Next in my toolbox, I'm going to talk to you about the different items I have to mark my garments and my patterns. First up, I'll be talking about tailor's chalk. So tailor's chalk is a fantastic medium to use if you're using wool fabrics, cottons, jerseys. They're super clever because you can obviously just use a wet sponge to remove them, and they do come in multiple colours for different coloured fabrics. Next up, I'll talk to you about this great item. So it's called an air erasable pen. So I use this on majority of my fabrics, obviously not black. I use that for my chalk. And this I found in my patchworking section in my Spotlight here in Australia. I obviously work with a grey lead as well, so patterns, changing patterns, writing anything on my patterns, I use grey lead, and also distinguishing the straight grain with red pen. Also, I don't necessarily use grey lead for fabric because it is quite difficult to get off, and the same with red pen. So if you're not going to see the little marks you make, then go ahead, but I prefer to use my air erasable one. Lastly, in my toolbox, I'm going to be showing you these bad boys. These are what we call lint rollers. So they're two different types, work pretty much the same. One's just sticky and one uses from the grain of the fabric. Depending on what you like, I like to have both in my toolbox. So they're super handy to get rid of any lint, dog hair, cat hair, or any animal hair, and also good with removing dust as well if you've had fabric lying around. So that's what I use them for, and I love both of them dearly. I hope you enjoyed the little video. If you have any handy tricks or sewing items that you have in your toolbox that I didn't share, please comment below because I would love to know what you have and what you use them for. Please make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe and follow us on the following socials: